Oh, Welcome back to 3DPO. Today we're going to start the assembly of the CN3D Xenomorph Toolhead. The toolhead is going to use some of the existing hardware from the Solval SV08 stock toolhead. I have one right here. And this toolhead is going to provide us with some of the components. It's going to provide us with the stepper, right? And this comes in two sizes. Some have a stepper that's 5 millimeters shorter. I have the longer one. It's going to require that I cut the axle flush with the back of the stepper motor. I'm also going to be using the tension spring and screw, using the pins from the idler and the tension arm, as well as the planetary gear inside. And that's going to be placed in the 3D printed parts that I printed out. Now, this comes in multiple flavors. The Xenomorph Toolhead can either come with the ability to install the Eddy coil as your probe, or Klicky, and which is what I'm using right now on my machine. Okay, so my machine is Klicky. You can also use an integrated filament cutter, which is really good news for me. Now, my machine, I converted it to CAN bus with an EBB 36 toolhead board controller. So what I was going to do was, because I converted it to CAN and I wanted an MMU, I was going to go with the ERCF. So I built a complete ERCF. It really turned out extremely nice. So I was very happy with it. But it is a lot of work. And so the other option that we have, and I purchased a 3D Chameleon MMU, 4 filament MMU, 4 filament changer, and that is we're going to incorporate that into the filament cutter on this tool head. That should make my life a little bit easier. There's also a new mode for the Chameleon. It's mode 3. It allows for an extra long length of filament from the feeder. So anyway, we're gonna get started. It's just gonna be fun. Part 1 coming up, and we're just gonna go right ahead and go right into this overhead display of my parts here. So we're gonna start with this with the stock tool head, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut that end off. I'm just gonna use my Dremel with a blade. I'm going to cut this flush, maybe do a little bit of filing, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I cut that off, that axle off. It's took about 3 minutes, so worked out really well. Cleaned it up a little bit, and so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go through the disassembly here. So what we're going to do is first is we're going to, let me grab my stuff here. Going to take off all these cables. I like to use this, right, because this is brand new. This is brand new stock from Solval. I bought this entire tool head assembly brand new, and so all the glue is still on all the connectors. Get all those off of there. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be using the stock control board. I have the EBB 36 on my SV08 as it is right now. All right, so there's all the cables off of there. I'm going to remove the fan, the hot end, everything. Let me grab this. Make my life a little easier here. Use some mechanized tools. Let's get this off of here. Fan's coming off. All right, so you're going to be doing everything that I'm doing right now. You'll be doing as well. There we go. Well, now I got a spare. What's really good news for me is that I now have a spare heater and thermistor. I'm currently using on my Soval. I'm using the Bambu hot end with the adapter. But anyway, so there's that. Let's take this control board off. Hot end control board. Now remember too that on my machine, the way it used to be when I first converted it. When I first converted it to CAN, I had to remove this cable, right? So this cable went to these two locations. I'm sorry, these two locations. Okay, here and here. All right, so I removed that. Now I'm just on a single 4-wire cable that goes from the main board to my controller. All right, so now we have the stuff we need. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this out. We're going to be reusing this. Okay, we're going to be reusing this. All right. And then I'm going to take this screw. Because we're going to be using the planetary gear and the motor, and that is all underneath here. Right there. So there we go. That's what we need. Now this has never been used. There's some fresh grease in here, but we're going to add additional grease when we put this on in the new enclosure. Okay, so there it is, planetary gear. We don't need anything else. Let me get this motor out of here. Pull that cable out. Give that a snip. And a snip. All right. Now we have pretty much everything we need. So the next thing that I'm going to do that pin and that pin, that pin and that pin are what I need, okay? Because this idler gear is going to be required, all right? So I'm going to pop those out. And I think I can use this, yes. So I'm just going in from behind. I just have an Allen, right? Just going in from behind, and I'm popping out that pin, okay? All right. It gives me this. And then I can take this pin out as well. There's no grub screws. And that comes right out like that. So we have one large pin, one thinner pin, and one wider pin. Wider pin, idler gear. Okay. All right. So now we have everything that we need. So with this motor, axle cut flush. Just want to show you a couple things. I already went ahead and put the heat set inserts in here. I didn't think that that would be really exciting for you to watch. Now I printed this a couple different ways. All right. So in this one, I printed it face down like this. And then that meant all the supports and everything were in here, and I had to pull them out, and it kind of left a little bit of a rough surface. So what I did was I printed it this side up with the supports over here, and what I did is I literally sanded it down, filed it down, took a paintbrush with a little bit of lacquer thinner and smoothed it over. Now, let's take a look at this because this is important to know. This little piece that sticks out here, this is because I'm going to be using, I chose the option for the filament cutter. And what will eventually happen is this filament cutter, this little number 4 hobby blade, goes into this little piece, and then it will cut the filament. But I'm not using that today, so we're not going to install that, but I'll make a video when I do. All right. Also, so here is the X carriage, and I did something a little bit different here too. I put in all the heat set inserts. I have pictures, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the manual using pictures that I've taken along the way. Okay, so I've already put the magnets and the heat set inserts. Now, again, there are different ways that this can be printed. The way that it's printed on the, if you take it from the file, it's printed, I believe, this way. But what I did was I printed it standing up. I printed standing up, and the reason for that is I got a much cleaner print, and I also wanted to have my layer lines perpendicular with the movement. I talked to Nadir about this, and he said, whatever your preference is, he prefers it the other way. There's two styles. So this particular style of X carriage is for Klicky. And the way that the Klicky is going to mount is like this, right? So, excuse me, like this. And then the Klicky, with its magnets, is going to mount right inside of there. Right inside of there, okay? And the way that the Klicky works is that the Klicky works this way, right? So there is a magnetized switch, right? It's just a little switch, and what it does is it goes in, right? It goes in, it grabs it, pulls it out, and then I can level the board. It's attached, right? And then I come back, I dock it, move to the side, Klicky stays in the mount. All right, so that's how it's going to work for us. Okay, all right. Also, it's going to have the integrated X stop. So on my machine, as the way it is right now, there's an X and a Y end stop that I'm using for the Klicky. You can do it without the Y. I prefer to do it with a Y. It just seemed a little bit easier. Nadir has a design for that. I'm going to put all of the links to all of this stuff in the video. Nadir and Christian have just done an unbelievable job in the design. I cannot compliment these guys enough for all of the work that they have done. It's really quite incredible. Definitely support these guys. They've worked very hard and deserve every bit of it. So make sure you do that. Okay, so now we have our planetary gear, and I had to sand mine out just a little bit in here. I mean, just a little bit, hardly any. All right, because I wanted it to be nice and flush. So we're gonna pop that in there. There we go. All right. I don't mind that being snug at all. All right. So that's where our planetary gear is. And what's really important and what you should notice, okay, is that there's an alignment between, let me push that in just a little bit, I think. There we go. All right, so you can see where the filament, let's take a look. I think I have a piece of filament here. I do. All right. So when the filament goes in, there's going to be a path. Right? So the little teeth on the extruder gear, there you go. Okay? Should line up perfectly. All right? There we go. All right, so if I turn this, pulls the filament right through. Look at that. Pretty cool, right? Okay. All right. All right, so now that we have that in place, I'm going to take and put the gears back in here. And I'm going to apply a little bit. In my case, I'm going to use a little bit of super lube. It's got some PTFE in here. I'll put a link in the description. I use this on all of the screws, the Z screws on my machines. So let's just put some of that on there. And this, you can see all the teeth in there. This is going to be the cover for that. So I'm going to put a little bit of this around the edges here. That's a pretty good amount. It's probably more than there was in the original. All right. Okay. And there we go. Like that. There we go. All right. Place for a screw. Right here. This is a 6mm. Okay, nice and flat. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to print it this way. I just felt more comfortable that there wouldn't be any little pieces floating around in there. Just personal preference. Okay. All right. So now we have our motor, and I'm going to be putting the wire upward. Okay. Put the motor in there. Just like that. Screws. Beautiful. All right. And I'm just using the original screws. Gotta love it. Thing of beauty. These guys did an amazing job. I gotta say the tolerances are just really quite extraordinary. And if you have your printer tuned really well, yeah, you're going to be really happy with the assembly process. It's pretty easy. Okay, so here's your original tension screw. Then we have our new piece, and that's going to go in just like this. It's going to go in like that. Okay, so test it, make sure. Yep, we're good. All right, I haven't tested this one yet, so all right, so let's put that piece in here. Remember, we got to put it up. Use the fat pin. There we go. Just like that. All right. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I should point out that this particular heat set insert is at an angle, and it's a little bit longer. It's the 5.7 millimeter long heat set insert. This is what I can tell you, is that I just use a soldering iron, but because it's longer and the tunnel is predefined, when I use the soldering iron and I just went very lightly, it followed its own path. It was perfect. All right, let's put that in there. Skinny pin. Make sure that's lined up correctly. Skinny pin. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, good. Is in. Looks good. Now we can put the cover on. Okay. 6 millimeter. Look at that. If you see that little nub sticking out, fits perfectly into the roundness of the PTFE connector. I mean, it's just incredible design work, I have to say. This is really, really good. Nadir is a wonderful guy to work with. Yeah. All right, so here's our extruder. Here's our extruder. All right, so I'm going to look at the, do this really quick. This is fast. So just to let you know, so the Nomi will go in this little enclosure, and that lines up perfectly with those heat set inserts right there. Okay. All right, so we have our extruder. All right, beautiful. I chose this blue, by the way, because it is a really incredibly close match to all of the Solval, parts inside of the machine. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the X carriage. Before we get started with the carriage, I just want you guys to know that Nadir over at CN3D, these guys are doing amazing work, and I would really like to have all of you support these guys as much as possible. They've done some incredible projects. Make sure to visit their Printables store, become a supporter. Very, very worth it. I appreciate everything that these guys have done, and hope to continue to work with them moving forward. So be kind and take care of these guys. Okay, so extruder is done. My filament path is perfect, clean. All right. And now we're going to do the X carriage, and the X carriage is going to be the part that's going to actually be attached to the movement of the X axis. All right. So it just comes in two parts like this. It's going to be put together like this. Here are where all the heat set inserts go. Just to note, there are 6 inserts on the back side of this that need to be the 5.7 millimeter heat set inserts. This one, this one, this one, this one, and these 2. All right, because they're going to be carrying the most amount of stress on the assembly. These 2 down here are for the Klicky assembly. I've already put in the magnets on both sides, and we're just going to bolt these together. And the way that that's going to happen is it's going to have 2 long screws, and we're going to have a nut that goes into the side, and it's already in the shape of the nut. Now I can take these 2 halves, put them together, and like I said, they're just so nicely aligned, just so incredibly well. All right. There we go. All right, grab this screw. And hopefully that'll grab. There we go. And then this guy. Beautiful. Okay, it's nice and straight. I like it. And what's going to happen is this the extruder is going to actually mount onto the top of this. It's just going to slide into these little grooves right like that. Okay, and then screws are going to come in from the other side, and then it'll be all one piece. But I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to be mounting the extruder after the X carriage is mounted. So there you go. So we're done with X carriage and extruder. All right. Coming up, the faceplate, the front shroud.